I mean, I've been into crypto for a long time. Like I got in, oh, I guess it's been like 10 years. I didn't realize that till I just said it. But yeah, I bought my first Bitcoin in 2014 on Coinbase. Like everybody who is still working, I didn't buy enough. uh, but I was fascinated by it. And then I remember paying close attention to the Ethereum crowdfund and buying some Ethereum, but not really understanding what it was, just thinking it was cool and interesting and liking the people that were in the space. And then in 2017, I was working at Google, and I remember thinking, okay, now's the time. Like DeFi summer had happened, and I was like, this is just a fascinating space. And so I left Google to go kind of work in crypto full time. Ended up going to Coinbase and did a bunch of work as a contractor for Coinbase over like a, I don't know, 4-5 year period. And then knew that I wanted to be a founder, but also knew that you, in some ways, I think that's a job that picks you. You don't necessarily get to pick it. The the special sauce of being a founder is conviction, and you can't fake conviction. You have to just genuinely believe in something bigger. And I remember being envious of the founders who I had worked with who had clearly had that. I had felt like I was like this mercenary for so long, and they were like these missionaries. And I remember thinking like, yeah, that's the difference. It's not enough to just be a good operator. You actually have to really believe. And so I started thinking a lot about, well, what do I believe? What change do I want to see in the world? What outcomes am I passionate about producing? And I think this notion of shared upside really captured my imagination. There's that great quote, I don't know who came up with this, but they say crypto turns communists into capitalists and capitalists into communists. And the idea is that you can both have ownership, but you can share that ownership with others. And that is something that I just find endlessly fascinating. And so that's kind of been the maze that we've been in. That's what we've been trying to figure out how to achieve in this very user-friendly way. And so, yeah, as we were looking at what to build, because we built a crowdfunding protocol that allowed people to kind of raise funds and share upside. There's a lot of legal issues with that, a lot of gray area. And so we were like, okay, this isn't quite right. And we were observing, user behaviors throughout the bear market as being primarily oriented around NFTs. It was like one of the very few things that people were actually doing every single day on chain. So we knew that there was something powerful about NFTs kind of as a primitive, and the mental model around NFTs seemed really sticky. So we were like, okay, whatever we do next, it should be oriented around an NFT. But then what? You're like, well, do we make a marketplace? Do we make a minting platform? Like, how do you differentiate in a meaningful way? We don't want to just be like a Me Too product. So we started thinking a lot about, well, what are people doing with NFTs? And like most of what you see is people, they just mint it and then it goes in their wallet and then they kind of forget about it and like end of story. And when you look at it from the perspective of the creator, they're like, well, they're doing a lot of mints. Why? Well, because they're trying to get money on a recurring basis. And then if you like kind of look back at the last full cycle, you could see this use case around memberships. People were like, mint this NFT and like I'll do work on a recurring basis. And so we're like, okay, that's really interesting, but broken, because it creates this very asymmetrically unfavorable economic relationship between the creator and the consumer, because the creator is having to produce work on a consistent basis. So Callow, you're doing podcasts, you're writing articles, you're creating media very regularly. But the reason why using an NFT as your payment rail is kind of broken is because from the consumer's perspective, they're like, this is a great deal. I'll just mint it once and I get essentially like forever access. So you might get paid a big chunk of money once that's announced, and then effectively goes down to zero. And so we're like, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for innovation here. And so we thought a lot about, okay, how can you do subscriptions of NFTs? And this is like not a new idea. I mean, there was multiple EIPs that tried to get off the ground and they never really got the adoption. And then there's been multiple platforms that have tried to do this, but in our view, they were just like Web 2 platforms, you know? And my kind of critical take is that most platforms essentially are psyoping creators into believing that the audience is subscribed to them, but they're not. They're subscribed to the platform.
Mm.
That is the platform's customer. They own all the subscriber data. They own the payment rail. That's their customer. It's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, well, great opportunity to counterposition here would be to give the creator complete control over the payment rail. So it's the creator who owns that contract. It's the creator who has the direct economic relationship with the consumer. And because it's the universal access pass, the credential is on chain, it's public, the subscription data is public, they're not locked in. They could go wherever they want. And so we were like, this just excited us. When it was like this idea that we couldn't let go of and couldn't stop thinking about. And so that was kind of the seed of Hypersub. And then we kind of hacked on it for a few months and then, you know, did the contract, got it audited, and then